Bondi's sham probe. How the AG's Trump-ordered witch hunt is burying Epstein files deeper than Epstein himself. All right, let me tell you something that has me so fired up I could chew nails and spit rivets right here in my living room while the coffee pot's still brewing my second cup of the day. Because on November 14, 2025, in a move so transparently sleazy, it makes used car salesmen look like Boy Scouts, Attorney General Pam Bondi announced she's launching a full-blown federal investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's ties to a laundry list of prominent Democrats like Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, and even J.P. Morgan Chase, all at the direct order of Mr. Orange authoritarian tyrant Trump Epstein, who couldn't resist turning his own steaming pile of scandal into someone else's dumpster fire. And the timing of this crap is no accident, folks. It's a blatant stalling tactic designed to slap an ongoing investigation label on those explosive Epstein files that House Democrats just pried loose from the estate this week. Meaning the Department of Justice can now wave that excuse like a magic wand to keep everything sealed tighter than a submarine hatch, while the real dirt on their boss, the guy who once bragged about Epstein liking his women on the younger side, stays buried where it belongs in the shadows of Mar-a-Lago's guest logs and those 7 Lolita Express flights that nobody in the White House wants to talk about anymore. I mean, seriously, if you thought the Epstein saga was hitting rock bottom after that July 2025 memo from Bondi and the FBI where they basically shrugged their shoulders and said, nothing to see here, no client list, no further probes needed after combing through everything. Think again. Because here comes Mr. Orange, authoritarian tyrant Trump Epstein on his Truth Social soapbox ranting about a Democrat hoax and demanding his pet attorney general sick the full weight of the federal government on his political enemies like it's just another Thursday afternoon golf game, conveniently ignoring the fact that those same emails Democrats dropped on November 12 over 23. 000 pages subpoenaed from Epstein's estate back in September are riddled with mentions of Trump himself, like that chilling 2015 exchange where Epstein tells author Michael Wolff, of course he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop, or the 2018 text where he boasts, I am the one able to take him down, painting a picture of 2 old Palm Beach pals who were way thicker than the terrific guy compliments Trump lobbed Epstein's way in 2002. And now Bondi, who back in February was hyping up the client list sitting on my desk, like it was the holy grail for MAGA truthers, is flipping the script faster than a politician dodging a polygraph, assigning SDNY-US. Attorney Jay Clayton, the same guy who nailed Ghislaine Maxwell back in the day to lead this so-called probe into everyone but the man pulling her strings from the Oval Office. All while the House gears up for a vote next week on that discharge petition with 218 signatures, including 4 rogue Republicans like Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are finally growing a conscience about this mess. This whole farce reeks of desperation from a White House that's been tap-dancing around Epstein transparency since day 1 of the second term. Remember how Bondi briefed Mr. Orange, authoritarian tyrant Trump Epstein back in May 2025, that his name popped up multiple times in the unreleased files, including hearsay about socializing with the predator himself. And instead of owning it or pushing for full disclosure, she and Deputy AG Todd Blanche issued a statement saying nothing warranted further investigation, which had even MAGA diehards like Laura Loomer and Dan Bongino howling for her head on a pike, because it contradicted every promise Trump made on the campaign trail about draining the swamp and exposing the deep state pedos. But fast forward to now and suddenly, there's new evidence. What new evidence, Pam? The emails that just dropped, or the ones you've been sitting on since February when you handed out binders to conservative influencers that conveniently included Trump's family phone numbers, but redacted the juicy bits and poof, investigation reopened. Files frozen under the guise of protecting an active case. A classic DOJ maneuver that lets them withhold documents indefinitely while the clock ticks toward midterms and public outrage hopefully fades into the next shiny distraction like whatever border wall photo op is queued up for next week. I'm not just mad, I'm livid in that deep down way that makes you question how we let a system this broken put a guy like Mr. Orange, authoritarian tyrant Trump Epstein back in charge after he spent years cozying up to Epstein. Hosting him at Mar-a-Lago parties where underage girls were allegedly on the menu like hors d'oeuvres, and then claiming some noble 2004 falling out over a property bid that now looks about as real as his university degrees. Because let's face it, if the break was that clean. Why did Trump wish Maxwell well? In 2020, or why do flight logs show him hopping Epstein's plane right up until the heat cranked up? And don't even get me started on Bondi's role in this clown show. A woman who back in Florida shielded Trump from his Trump University scam as AG there, and now, as federal top cop, is turning the Justice Department into his personal vendetta machine. Stonewalling Senate Democrats like Dick Durbin in that October 7 hearing where she dodged questions about who ordered FBI agents to flag Trump mentions during the file review, snapping back with "I'm not going to discuss that with you, Senator." Like she's auditioning for a bad spy thriller, and when pressed on the suspicious activity reports tied to Epstein's finances that her team allegedly never touched, she just pivoted to attacking the questioner's donors. Because apparently accountability is a one-way street in Trumpland, where the boss gets a pass on everything from felony convictions to predator pen pals. Democrats are ripping this apart like it's the flimsiest tissue paper, with House Oversight's Robert Garcia blasting Bondi on November 13 for her refusal to release the files and continued disregard of a congressional subpoena that the committee approved back in August, citing Virginia Giuffre's posthumous memoir that dropped this year after her tragic suicide in April, detailing horrors that contradict the Dodge's no further action memo and scream for justice against the co-conspirators who got away scot-free and over on judiciary. Ranking Member Jamie Raskin fired off a letter on November 4 demanding answers on why the SDNI's active probe into Epstein and Maxwell's network, which had survivors lining up with precise details on at least 20 men involved in the trafficking, got yanked to DOJ headquarters in January and then abruptly killed by July, with Raskin calling it a betrayal of the more than 1,000 survivors of this multi-billion-dollar international sex trafficking ring. That makes you wonder if the fix was in from the jump to protect the powerful, especially when counsel for those victims told the committee the feds fired career prosecutors and cut off leads that could have blown the whole operation wide open, leaving Maxwell as the lone fall guy while the real enablers sipped scotch in boardrooms and bunkers. And the hypocrisy here is thicker than the fog rolling off the Potomac on a bad day, because while Bondi trots out this probe like it's some bold pursuit of truth, it's laser-focused on Democrats with zero accusations of misconduct from Epstein's victims against Clinton or Summers or Hoffman Clinton's. 26 flights and island visits are old news that haunt him, sure, but Trump's own logs and emails paint him as equally entangled. Yet crickets on investigating Mar-a-Lago manifests or those 2011 emails where Epstein notes to Maxwell that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. After a victim spent hours at his house with him, implying a silence bought with complicity rather than coincidence, and Hakeem Jeffries nailed it in his November 14 floor speech, dubbing this the felon in the White House, running a pedophile protection program by stalling new rep. Adelita Grijalva's swearing in for months just to block that discharge petition from hitting 218, only for Johnson to cave after protests hit the Capitol with signs screaming Epstein delay. Now teed up for a vote that could force the Senate's hand if 13 Republicans like Susan Collins flip under the heat from 5,000 marchers on the Mall yesterday chanting "Unseal" or "Resign," like it's the new national anthem for anyone with a pulse and a moral compass. This ties right into the broader rot eating away at the administration's underbelly. where health care's getting gutted in the shutdown's wake, with ACA subsidies expiring and premiums set to spike 60% for 20 million folks by January, per CBO estimates that dropped last Friday. Leaving families to choose between meds and mortgages, while Mr. Orange authoritarian tyrant Trump Epstein floats half-baked send checks direct to people. Schemes that sound populist until you realize they're a Trojan horse to dismantle the marketplaces and close rural hospitals faster than you can say concepts of a plan. And all the while, Bondi's out here announcing strike forces for Russia hoax revivals on July 24, or firing interim U.S. attorneys who don't toe the line, like that New Jersey mess in October that had her deputizing Matthew Gaylotti to speak at CPAC because her own eye issues kept her sidelined but graceful under pressure or not. This Epstein pivot is the kind of frantic damage control that screams guilt louder than any deposition, especially when even Elon Musk confirmed back in June what Rep. Dan Goldman suspected that Bondi had the FBI's New York field office pulling all-nighters to redact Trump mentions from the initial February dump, delaying other probes to scrub the files clean before handing out that Part 1 tease that was mostly recycled public docs with zero bombshells. Polls are turning uglier than a root canal without Novocaine, with Quinnipiac's November 14 numbers showing Trump's approval cratering to 38% and 22% of independents calling the Epstein mentions a serious concern. That's fracturing the MAGA monolith, as Green feuds with Trump over H-1B visas and files while Massey tweets he's tired of messing around. Their defection to the petition exposing the house of cards teetering under Bondi's fumbling, with House GOP sources whispering she's got very little time to turn this around before judiciary hauls her in for testimony that could make Watergate look like a kiddie pool splash fight. And Democrats like Ro Khanna are already questioning if this probe can even be conducted in good faith when it's born from a truth social tantrum rather than evidence. With Skiff demanding Bondi and Patel testify on the Senate floor to explain why hearsay about Trump socializing with Epstein got the soft touch, while Clinton's old flights become fresh meat for the grinder. What burns me up most in this endless loop of lies and levers is how it spits in the face of the victims. Those over 200 brave souls, mostly teens when Epstein and his crew ruined them for sport, with Jeffers' story calling Trump friendlier. During her Mar-a-Lago days as a locker room attendant, a gut-wrenching reminder that these weren't abstract transactions but lives shredded by elites who treated girls like trading cards. And now Bondi's urgency and integrity. Pledge rings hollow when her July memo shut down co-conspirator leads that survivors handed over on a silver platter. Precise accounts of the ring's mechanics that could have netted those 20 men but instead got shelved after the inauguration shuffle. With Raskin demanding in his November 3 letter why no steps were taken post-January 20, and if Trump himself corresponded with Epstein in ways that demand scrutiny. Questions Bondi dodged in that Senate clash where she shouted down White House on suspicious activity reports like they were state secrets, instead of leads to Epstein's money trail that might loop back to Trump's own deals. Folks, this isn't governance. It's a gangster movie scripted by amateurs, with Mr. Orange authoritarian tyrant Trump Epstein directing from the shadows while Bondi plays the loyal capo enforcing omerta on the files that could finally hold him accountable. But with the House vote looming and Senate filibuster in play, plus those X threads blowing up from users like at Ron Filipkowski mocking the hoax. Flip-flop and at anti-Trump Canada editing Trump's posts into confession booths, the pressure's mounting like a boiler about to blow, and if we amplify the survivors, flood the switchboards and back the defectors like Boebert who's suddenly all about victims not politics. Opportunism or not maybe will crack this vault before it becomes another forgotten chapter in the Trump crime family annals, because silence here isn't golden, it's the grease that keeps the machine of abuse humming. And I'm done watching it spin while the rest of us pay the tab in shattered trust and second chances denied, I just want to thank you all for listening. Like, share, follow to stay connected. I am Santiago del Carmen Maria, the Queen of Crowning Thoughts, because I say it like it is. Copyright 2025, independent writer, Crowning Thoughts truth speaker, AI video content creator, writer, blogger, Santiago DC. Maria. All rights reserved. November 15, 2025 #Bondi cover-up #Epstein files blocked #Trump Epstein probe #Dem witch hunt #Unseal now.